Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm going to be drawing characters into different universes. I was trying to decide on a video idea for this week, and I thought about doing another drawing myself into anime scenes video. This is a popular series on my channel where I draw myself into shows. As I was considering this, I randomly thought of the idea to draw characters into each other's shows, almost like those Disney cartoon crossovers, but with a twist. Instead of keeping the characters in their usual style, I will draw them in the style of the show they are going into. I wanted to make characters cross over into different shows where they kind of have something in common. The first universe crossover is going to be Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Sonic X. I know this probably seems really random, but I thought these two could maybe pair nicely since they both have humanoid animal characters. First, I'm going to draw Sonic into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then I'll draw one of the turtles into Sonic X. For TMNT, I chose this scene here. It is a group shot from the first episode, and I thought I could place Sonic here in this kind of empty space. Now, a lot of times when I'm drawing myself into shows, I find a character to use as my base, so it's easier for me to replicate the style and not draw in my own style. However, since I'm drawing more iconic characters, it's harder to find things to use as a base, so I'm going to have to do this all on my own from scratch. I'm a bit nervous, but I have been doing this for a while now, and I have gotten better at replicating styles, so I was hoping this would turn out okay. I started by drawing the head over Raphael's head to make sure the head was similar in size to the other characters. I didn't want the scale of Sonic to feel too off. I didn't want him to be too large or too small. Now, technically, since I will be drawing one of the turtles into Sonic X, I should have drawn the Sonic X version of Sonic into this scene. However, I chose to draw Sonic Boom Sonic instead because I felt like this design would better fit with the show. He has extra accessories and he is taller than the other versions of Sonic, so I felt like he would be the best fit, but it is a little bit of a cheat. Maybe it's not Sonic Boom Sonic, maybe it's just how Sonic X Sonic looks in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe. Yeah, that's what it is. Originally, I was going to draw Chris from Sonic X into the screenshot because I felt too nervous to draw Sonic. I felt like Chris was an easier option and it'd be easier to stylize. Plus, if I ended up making him look weird, people probably wouldn't be too mad at me. Sonic fans get really protective of Sonic's design and how it appears. And I know a lot of them don't really like Sonic Boom Sonic. I've always really liked Sonic Boom Sonic and the Sonic Boom show. So I'm a fan of it. But anyways, yeah, I felt like drawing Chris was taking the easy way out, and the whole reason of doing Sonic and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles together was because they have anthropomorphic characters. And so I decided to challenge myself and draw Sonic. When drawing Sonic into this style, I tried my best to use similar shapes that the show uses. The shapes have a simple and angular feel, while also being very round at times. I also changed his facial proportions to match the other characters more. I also let the part in between Sonic's eyes divide his eye area a bit more, and his eyes will be filled in totally black like all the others. I also included these little hook shapes around his mouth, since all of the other characters have this. It was very interesting drawing this without any kind of base. It required me to very closely study the characters and decide on how I wanted to apply the things I saw to Sonic. For the line art, it is overall smooth and has a lot of changes in line weight. A lot of times it seems that the line art on the outer edges are thicker and the lines for details on the inside of the shapes is smaller. I tried my best to let my line work taper and have variation in its size. The show also adds some shading with the line work by filling in some areas with black, like under the head. I applied more line art around the scarf to mimic this. I've been a fan of TMNT since the 2012 cartoon. I didn't watch it at first, but my brothers liked to watch it, and I eventually started to watch it with them. We would all get super excited when there'd be new episodes, and we'd watch them together. But after the 2012 cartoon ended, Rise started not too long after. And at the time when it started airing, I didn't really get into the show. The characters and the overall tone of the show felt very different from the 2012 one, and it just didn't really hook me as much. However, my youngest brother had started watching the show like last year, I think, and I kept finding myself watching it when it was on. Enough time had passed from the 2012 one, and I felt more open to the concept of this show. And I have to say, my favorite part is the animation. It's really well done, and some of the scenes are so cool and dynamic. And I do appreciate the different take on the characters, and I found them all to be really fun in their own ways. I watched the movie that came out last year and enjoyed it. It made me cry towards the end, but I was also sick at the time, I think, and I get more emotional when I'm sick. But yeah, I thought it was really good. But back to drawing. I do want to pre-warn that since I am drawing the characters in different styles from how they usually appear, some of them may look very odd and maybe a little cursed. So please keep in mind that this is all just for fun and please don't take it too seriously. I'm not even sure how I feel about some of these. I'm just trying my best. But for Sonic's colors, I was able to grab them all from other characters within the scene. This was really nice because sometimes color palettes can be really hard to match up. I did have to make his skin tone myself, but I feel like I was able to get it to match pretty okay with the other colors. A lot of times when you're trying to match up colors, it's important to pay attention to the values and the hues and kind of the overall tones that are a theme throughout the show. So I try my best to match within the show and its colors. Lastly, I needed my art to look more pixelated to match the screenshot, so I scaled down my art a good amount and then scaled it back up. This gives it the pixelated look. I also applied a little bit of blur, and with that, we are done. Here is Sonic in Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I do feel like no matter what, it's a bit hard to make Sonic fit in since he is such an iconic and recognizable character. I hope it looks believable that this was some kind of Sonic and TMNT crossover event. Next, I need to draw one of the turtles into Sonic X. For the scene I chose, I remembered about this one where Knuckles and Amy are down in a sewer. I think it's like episode 3 or 4. I felt like this would be the perfect scene since the turtles live in the sewers. As I was preparing for this, I was kind of shocked to find that there weren't really any turtle Sonic characters. I thought maybe there would be a small side turtle character, but the only turtle character I found in the Sonic universe was from Sonic Boom, and its style is very different from Sonic X. That being said, he was still a very helpful reference for turtle features, but I did want to proportion this character like the rest of the Sonic X characters. The turtle I chose to draw is Michelangelo. I chose him because he's often my favorite, but I always like all the turtles in their own ways. But his design also looked like it would fit in pretty okay. I was a bit nervous to draw this, but not as nervous as the first screenshot. Sonic X was a show I watched a lot growing up, and I used to redraw scenes from it when I first started drawing, and I've also drawn myself into it as a bunny character. So I feel very familiar with the style and like I'd be able to stylize Mikey more easily. The line art was definitely easier this time around. It doesn't have any line variation at all, so I had to just go over my sketch without too much thought. Oh, also, I wanted to let you all know I added some new products to my shop. I added a button set that features the chibi version of me and the characters from my webcomic. We have a mouse pad featuring the hyperstyle art of Doris. And we also have a motivational sticker sheet featuring the stickers of my babies. This is similar to the one I did with NOC, but the one with NOC has more stickers because I was able to fit all of the stickers on that one. This one has less stickers. But I wanted to make them also available in my online shop. In case you want to get them from there instead. I'm super happy with how all of these turned out, from the quality to the colors. They all look so great. I always make sure to test print my products in my online store before making them public because I always want to check the quality to make sure they're nice. I really dislike when YouTubers sell merch but they don't test the quality and then you end up with not really good stuff. So I always make sure to test the quality, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. If you want to check them out for yourself, you can find them under this video in the merch section, or there's also a link to my shop in the description. For Mikey's base colors, I found a picture from a character sheet online and selected his colors from that. I was a bit nervous that since I wasn't selecting colors from within the show, that his colors would look off. But with the help of a multiply layer and going over all the colors with a muted bluish color, I was able to make him fit in pretty well. The way I pick the color to apply is I play around with the colors until the whites match, or at least pretty close to being the same. That's how I gauge if I have the right hue or not. Next was adding the shading, and I always forget how much shading Sonic X actually has. They add a lot of highlights to the characters along with some shadows, so I went around a lot of the edges with a white set to a slightly lower opacity. By having the white be a lower opacity, some of the base colors can still shine through, and I don't have to keep switching the colors I'm using. Out of all the screenshot edits I did for this video, I actually think this one is my favorite. I don't know, I just really like how Mikey looks and I think he turned out really cute and fits in pretty well. Plus it doesn't look cursed like some of the upcoming edits. Oh, also for his eyes I made them blue because that's the color they are in the 2012 Ninja Turtles. They are black in Rise, but I take that as more of a stylistic choice. I used Tails as a reference for shading the eyes. I couldn't really see the eye shading in this screenshot since Knuckles' eyes are a little cut off and Amy has her eyes closed, so I needed to bring in a reference. Lastly, we get to add his little fun details. I outlined some of them, but I felt like it'd be better to have some of them not be outlined. I don't know if this totally matches up with the show, but I feel like it looks okay. And then lastly, we make it look a little bit more pixelated, and we are done. So here's Michelangelo in Sonic X. I had a ton of fun with this, and like I said, I feel like it might be my favorite one. It's very different from what I usually draw. The next two shows that will be having a crossover is Lilo and Stitch and Pokémon. I thought these shows would be a good crossover because they both involve little creatures with special abilities. But this also means I need to draw Pikachu as an alien experiment and Stitch as a Pokémon. Please bear with me through this. Okay, so for Lilo and Stitch, I chose this screenshot from episode 1 of the cartoon. Lilo and Stitch are chasing down an earthquake experiment, and they ran into this cave. My idea is to have Ash and Pikachu be peeking over with them. I knew drawing these characters into the style of Lilo and Stitch was going to be an interesting challenge. Thankfully, I have drawn myself into Lilo and Stitch, so I've worked with the style before, but it is very different working with a popular character instead of just myself. Plus, like I said, I'm not using any reference bases for this, and I'm drawing everything from scratch. That being said, I had a ton of reference pictures. For Ash, I referenced Keone a lot since he is a boy character that seems to be around Ash's age. A very iconic part for the style of the show is the nose. It's very round and the nostrils are indicated, so I made sure to draw it in this way for Ash. For Pikachu, I just referenced a bunch of the different experiments. I compared a lot of the different designs and tried to find things about them that they had in common. Things that I noticed reoccurring in them are the eye shape, bigger round noses, lighter colors around the eyes and bottom side of the mouth, and some kind of fur detail if they have fur. I also chose to draw Pikachu's head things as more like ears than how they usually appear. Also, I am basing the design for Ash off of his look in Pokemon Journeys. It might be Master Journeys, I can't remember at this point. I get all the journeys confused. I'm currently watching through Journeys and I'm getting closer to finishing all the episodes. I'm at the point where Ash is going to be going into the final 8 battles for the Pokemon League thing so that he can fight Leon. It will be kind of bittersweet finishing Journeys, but I'm excited to see the Scarlet and Violet anime. I'm interested to see how the show will be with new main characters. For the line art, it was pretty simple. Like with Sonic X, there is no line variation, so it went pretty smoothly. But I will have to draw around Lilo and Stitch since the characters are behind them. It's always kind of tedious drawing around characters, mostly because I want to make sure my lines match up with the characters, so things don't look off or have a weird edge. Oh, and as I was looking through the episodes of the show, I did come across some of the crossover episodes, like the one with Penny Proud, Kim Possible, and I forgot about the one with the Recess kids. Probably really showing my age talking about all of these. Do kids these days know any of these cartoons? But yeah, I was getting hit with nostalgia while doing this since I did watch this cartoon a lot growing up. I was really surprised to see it only had 2 seasons. I felt like it went on so much longer than that. Anyways, now we are on to the coloring, and this part was pretty simple. I just selected colors from a screenshot and applied them to the art. I did have to make a few custom colors, but nothing gave me much trouble. Well, one part was a bit tedious, and it was changing the line art color around the different parts. I noticed in the show that the line art changed color depending on what it was outlining. This is a nice touch to do because it makes the line art feel less harsh. So I clipped a layer to my line art, slightly lowered the opacity, and went over the line art with colors for the area it was outlining. I did sometimes have to think about which color to use if it was an area with 2 colors, like the yellow stripes on Ash's vest. But for the most part, I just chose the colors of the things that felt like it was more of the object being outlined, if that makes any sense. So yeah, this part wasn't too challenging, just kind of tedious. After I got all that changed, I noticed that Lilo had some soft shading on her nose and cheeks, so I added some to Ash's face, as well as a bit on Pikachu's nose to make it similar to Stitch's. The last thing I needed to do was make the lighting more cohesive. I applied some shading with a muted reddish color set to multiply to the characters. I also needed to give them a soft rim light, so I filled in around the characters with white, blurred it, and clipped it to just the coloring layers. A lot of times I'll clip this to the line art layer as well, but the show only clips it to the colors, so I did the same. I also needed to adjust the cast shadow on the rocks, so I carefully went in with some color to adjust the shape. It now didn't make sense for lighting to be coming in right there, since Ash and Pikachu are blocking it. And so here are Ash and Pikachu in Lilo and Stitch. This was very interesting to try. I hope you like my experiment version of Pikachu. It's definitely a different look for him. But we still have to draw Lilo and Stitch into Pokemon, so let's do that now. This scene I chose is from the episode Spectral Express. I liked it because it featured the characters and Ash is looking at this paper on the ground. But if I draw Lilo and Stitch here, it'll look like he's looking at them. Lilo is only 6 years old, so I'm going to draw her a decent amount shorter than the other characters. My idea is that maybe her and Stitch just got off the train and they are introducing themselves or something. Or Ash is wondering what kind of Pokemon Stitch is. So for the pose, Lilo is kind of walking and will be referencing the Stitch with her hand. Also, Lilo and Stitch are kind of the same size in their show, but I decided to make Lilo a decent amount taller and Stitch shorter, just to make it so I didn't have to draw a super tall Stitch. So Lilo was super easy to draw, very much in my comfort zone, but Stitch on the other hand was very troublesome. My husband was a bit surprised when I told him I had a hard time making Stitch be a Pokemon because he already kind of looks like one. And yet, he kinda does. Now, of course, Pokemon vary a ton and have a wide range of details, but they all also have a kind of certain feeling or aesthetic to them. They all kind of feel like Pokemon. So I was trying to draw Stitch in a way that matched that feeling of Pokemon. You saw at first I tried sketching something out, but I didn't really like that, and now I have this version that I sketched over Pikachu. And you might be thinking that this looks nothing like Stitch, and I agree with you. Don't worry, I will change details to make him more Stitch-like. One thing I did was I changed the eye shape to match his. I drew them similar to the Evolution eyes, and I felt like this helped a lot. But enough about Stitch, we are on to line art. Once again, the line art doesn't have line variation. I do find it interesting that Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the only one to have line art variation. You don't see that very often in shows, so I think it's kind of neat that they include line variation in it. One thing I do wish is that I would have cleaned up my sketches more. I only did the rough sketch, and I thought it was clean enough for me to move on to line art. However, because it was still kind of messy, it made the line art process take so much longer than it really needed to, and a bit more frustrating because I had to keep fixing things. I should have just taken the extra time to do the cleanup sketch. It would have been faster and less frustrating. So yeah, if you find line art frustrating, maybe try cleaning up your sketch a bit more. That's what I do. I really hope this video does well because I had a lot of fun with this concept and I have more ideas I could do. If you have any crossover ideas, I'd love to hear them in the comments. The only requirement is that they need to be 2D animated shows or movies. 3D animated stuff is way too hard to do, but you can suggest cartoons or anime, anything that's 2D that you think would be cool to have a crossover. One I thought about doing is Powerpuff Girls and Sailor Moon. What do you think of that idea? I thought it might be neat. For the colors, I mostly just selected colors from within the scene and slightly edited them to match the characters. One part that was actually really fun was adding the pattern to the dress. I drew leaf-like shapes and then erased the details out of the shapes. It was a simple but satisfying process, and I'm happy with how they turned out. I don't often draw patterns by hand, but whenever I do, I always feel like I should do it more often. The shading and highlights was pretty fast on Lilo. I just kind of added some under her neck and around her shirt sleeves, and also a highlight along her hair. However, for Stitch, I couldn't make up my mind on how I wanted to draw his fur pattern, and I started to edit it here. At first, I basically had his whole face area filled with light blue. Technically, his upper lip area is the darker blue, and I didn't add this at first because I thought it might be a bit too busy or wouldn't fit in well, but I thought adding it in might help this feel more like Stitch, so I started adding it in. And for the part around the eyes, I was only going to have maybe half of it be filled around the eyes, but then I changed my mind and made it go fully around the eyes. So yeah, there was a lot of small tweaks with Stitch. Oh, and you may have noticed early in the process I had his mouth happy and open, but it's now a closed smile and he has little fangs sticking out. I feel like his wide mouth is a dominant trait for him, so I tried to keep it. And he also has a lot of pointy teeth, and they don't usually show when he closes his mouth, but I felt like it might be cute to do for the Pokemon version of him, and that maybe it'd make him feel more Stitch-like. I don't know, I'm trying. But I do feel like he actually turned out kinda cute. So here's Lilo and Stitch in Pokemon and all the other shows I did. Like I said, I had a ton of fun with this, and I hope I can do it again sometime. It was fun drawing characters that aren't just me into other shows, and it really helped me experiment with drawing new subjects and styles. I'd love to hear your crossover suggestions down in the comments. Before we end, I want to thank my super awesome YouTube members and Patreon patrons for their support. It means so much to me. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!